Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
We're live, and I think we're live on a couple of new platforms as well. Welcome back, everybody, to the Maverick News channel. Hello, Maverick family and new viewers. ICE raids topping the headlines tonight, and the DC crime crackdown results in over 800 arrests. Kash Patel is proud. Others are enraged. We'll show you the contrast. And we'll show you some of the other arrests, too, from other parts of the country. We also have Mark Carney on a jet landing in Poland to begin a European tour. And other news as well to dig into tonight, as we also probably will take a few moments to reflect on Pierre Poilievre's, or maybe not so much his pivot, but the Conservative Party pivot that appears to be pivoting, well, to the right, depending on which side of the screen you're looking at. And whether you're in reverse mode or not, that's my right. Maybe your left. I don't know. But that seems to be where they're going, even though some people, some other analysts, seem to think that Pierre Poilievre has crushed the right. It's all because of what happened in that by-election out in Alberta. We're going to dig into all that and more as we begin to unpack the top news stories of the day right here on Maverick News. Stay with me. Lots ahead.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so where should I begin, or how should I begin this story? Immigration, ICE raids, crime in DC, Donald Trump, National Guard, ICE, Dean Cain, Superman joins ICE. I also received phone messages from quite a number of people who wanted to talk about hang on, I'm just checking my microphone. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, so some people also leaving comments about the immigration issue on my voicemail. I got those. I listened. I received messages about a lot of things. My messages were completely full again. So I tried to wade through them. Sorry if I haven't called some people back that I'm supposed to call back. I'm trying to get through all the calls. Couple of people made an interesting comment that I keep hearing over and over again. Rick, Canada is not the same as it was. Yeah, no kidding. Canada wasn't the same in the 1970s as it was in the 1950s. It changes from decade to decade. So did the United States. So has the world. The one thing that is constant in this world is change. And yet, the more things change, in many respects, the more they stay the same. Because you see the same fights, the same divisions, the same friction, the same arguments over the same religions and the same, well, maybe not the same politics, but the evolving politics. Did you really expect it to stay the same? It can't stay the same. The country, the country is growing, and I think that maybe we're getting some freezing on the internet. We had to subscribe to another new internet provider because we continue to have internet issues here in this neighborhood where we have the lines coming in. This should be faster, and yet I think it's freezing. I do apologize if that is what you are experiencing on your end. That being said, Canada as a country and the United States growing, more and more people coming into the country. Certainly, the birth rate is something of an issue for some demographics. But the country is not the same. I know that. Hello, it's obvious. But the Constitution in both Canada and the United States, the constitutions are both designed to protect our rights. At least they're supposed to, especially when politicians do their jobs properly. All I'm saying is, yeah, I know things change. That's inevitable. So we have to accept that that's the case. I don't know why people keep saying that. It's not the same as, I know it's not the same. And it's never going to be like it was ever again. It can't be. Even if you deported all the people that you think you want to deport, which you probably don't. But if you did, it still wouldn't be the same. And one of the reasons it wouldn't be the same if you deported all the people that you think you want to deport is because the only way to do that would be to violate their rights. And if you violate their rights, then your rights no longer mean anything either. Freedom has to be universal. Rights need to apply to everyone equally. Even in some cases, people who are not citizens in our countries. Because in order to have a civil society, we need to make sure that we are civil. And we need to make sure the politicians don't overreach. When I see what's going on in the United States right now, I have to admit, and this is me editorializing, I am concerned. I'm concerned about the use of National Guard troops on the streets of Washington and statements by the president saying that he wants to do it in other cities. Because I think it's an inappropriate use of the National Guard. They're really not supposed to be used for policing. Policing is not a military endeavor. Now, you have social problems, you have people on the streets. There are things that have to be done to address those issues. I'm not sure if the real solution is to simply go around arresting people and throwing people in jail. That might make the problem appear to go away, but you're maybe creating a larger problem, an invisible problem, but one that probably will come back to haunt you because you might be violating rights, due process. Kash Patel, FBI, is ecstatic because he says that over 800 arrests have now been made in Washington, D.C. as part of this Donald Trump crackdown on crime. Let me see if I can. I think we're losing our tabs here because of the internet. So I hope that that's not the case because I spent a considerable amount of time lining all this stuff up for you guys tonight. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so let me bring this back up over here. So here's Kash Patel on social media. And this is all for your safety. Remember that. This is all for your safety. It's always for your safety, right? I mean, sometimes, yeah, government's justified in taking steps to keep us safe, whether it's national defense or other endeavors. Yeah, sometimes we need the government to keep us safe. Here's Kash Patel, FBI director. Thanks to the FBI and teams on the ground getting after last night, there were 27 arrests from FBI personnel, 1 illegal firearm recovery, 7 drug seizures, 91 individuals arrested by federal partners, pursuant to @Real Donald Trump initiative, where up to over 800 arrests in the Make DC Safe Again mission. 800. 800 people arrested. That's a lot of people thrown in the slammer. What does all that look like exactly? I'm not exactly sure. Where are those people? It concerns me. That's a lot of people rounded up. Who are they? Is this just, rounding up homeless people? Poor people? Is that right? Is that fair? The mentally ill? Is that the right way to treat them? Where are they? What are you doing with them? Are they getting the care that they need? Are they being treated humanely? If they are mentally ill, are you just throwing them in jail and forgetting about them? Do they have anyone advocating for them? Are they being given lawyers? That's a whole lot of time in court. 800 people. I'm not sure. But the other thing we're seeing tonight is that I guess Home Depots in the States have become sort of hunting grounds for ICE agents. Here we are here. Look at this. This is NBC. Saturday, what is it? August 23rd, 2025. And the headline from NBC on this night, Home Depots become prime locations for immigration enforcement. Home Depot. Why? Well, that's because they're going there to work. Day laborers gather in parking lots of stores in Southern California every day in search of work, and federal agents are following to arrest them. Offer them a job, slap the cuffs on. Just the sight of masked federal agents, it says here, in tactical gear descending on Home Depots across Southern California is forcing undocumented day laborers to weigh earning badly needed income against the risk of being arrested or deported. At least 2 Home Depot parking lots in the Los Angeles area were targeted Friday amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Day laborers were detained in North Hollywood and Alhambra as organizers shouted demanding to see warrants and attempted to obtain as much information as possible from handcuffed workers. The scene has become familiar this summer to day laborers who are desperate to maintain a steady income in a local economy still recovering from January's wildfires and the rising cost of building materials caused by tariffs. They wait in parking lots each morning hoping to earn a day's wage or, if they're lucky, get hired for a long-term project that could mean weeks or months of steady pay. But the constant threat of arrest is taking a toll on many workers who say they are traumatized and can't sleep after watching friends and family members being arrested and taken to jail. What can you do in this country? You can't stay home. You need money for kids, bills, rent, food, said Arturo, a day laborer who lives in Los Angeles and spoke in Spanish. Arturo and other laborers interviewed by NBC spoke on the condition of anonymity because they feared being targeted by immigration and customs enforcement agencies or other federal officers. And Friday's Home Depot operations took place about a week after Roberto Carlos Montoya Valdez, a day laborer from Guatemala, died after fleeing from agents at a Home Depot parking lot in Monrovia. He ran into a nearby freeway and was hit by a car. Immigration advocates and community members said Montoya, who was in the U.S. without legal authorization, was not a criminal, but a hardworking father. You're getting the picture, and I'm sure that there's a memorial, a wreath for Montoya at a Home Depot in Monrovia, California. You know, it's a sad state of affairs, sad story. People, I guess, attracted to the United States is maybe the right word, by hopes for a better life, policies in the past that attracted them, government policies. Now they're here. Some here for even, over a decade, decades, families, roots put down, contributing to the communities. And I'm not talking necessarily about people who have done illegal things other than maybe breaking immigration law. But the thing is, the way the Constitution is written in the United States, even people in the country who enter illegally still are entitled to some degree of due process. It's different for them than it is for a citizen, but they still are entitled to due process. And police, government agents enforcing laws, they're supposed to follow certain rules too. And it seems like a lot of those rules have been thrown out. It seems like the government, Donald Trump's agents, might be breaking some of those rules themselves, maybe breaking some laws. So maybe they're not so clean either. It's just a bad situation all the way around. In Canada, I think the situation is somewhat different. We don't have this massive deportation effort underway, although we're hearing that kind of rhetoric from Pierre Poilievre increasingly. Certainly, we've been hearing about that, that kind of rhetoric from figures like Maxime Bernier and the PPC. And the politics is more polarized, and the people on the right certainly shifting harder right. That's very much on display tonight as well. Understandable in many respects. I've been well aware of that, but alarming as well to some degree because of how far some people are going. And we'll show you how that's affecting not just adults, but children as well. And I have to wonder what the future holds because of all of this. I thought for a time that we were emerging, we were getting out of the darkest times as we drift away or drift through time further away from the pandemic. But now I'm beginning to have second thoughts about all that. Rick Wilson, Lincoln Project, one time conservative Republican, now fierce critic of Donald Trump, posted a very powerful video over the past 24 hours, which I will share with you here. Keep in mind that Rick Wilson, and part of the Lincoln Project, he's kind of a conservative who has shifted his political views considerably. So I'll share that with you. But as I talk about this, I also am thinking about John Bolton and his arrest. Well, the raid on his home, I should say, as they looked for, I think it was yesterday, right? Classified documents at his home. And what was the justification for all of that? We're not exactly sure yet, but I have been digging into it, and there are reports that Bolton might have, while he was the national security advisor for Donald Trump during the first Trump administration, during his brief stint in that role from his office, may have been emailing classified documents to his home in a manner in which he was not supposed to be doing that. And those are the allegations that seem to be emerging from deep within the Trump administration, from sources deep within the Trump administration. Not really fully revealed yet. So that might be the predicate for what is going on with him. But even if that is the case, those same sources say that there were political motivations, both for the investigation that was apparently launched into John Bolton initially after he left the Trump administration, and then it was paused apparently for political reasons when Biden was in office, possibly because it was politically advantageous for the Biden administration to ignore what Bolton may have allegedly done with these classified documents, because he became such a fierce critic of Donald Trump and the book that he wrote. Some people are saying that his apparent or alleged violation of a non-disclosure agreement through some of what was published in his book after leaving the Trump administration may have been related to the raid on his home and his office, because after raiding his home in a very public way, they also raided his office. It's still not clear what they may have taken or not taken, found or not found. But through all of this, we're now hearing that he maybe that book wasn't really the reason for the raid after all. That's kind of old news anyway. So it might have something to do with these allegations of improperly emailing classified documents so that he would have copies of in his possession after he left the Trump administration, and may still have had access to it. But those same sources say that there may have been political motivations on both sides to go after him. And so you see, the law is being bent in the United States by the Department of Justice, by the FBI, by the CIA, by all these government agencies, bent to suit the whims, the needs, the directions, the directives coming from whomever might be in power at the time, it seems. If Biden's in power, Bolton gets off. If Trump's in power, Kash Patel goes after him because he's a critic of Donald Trump, not really because he might have some classified documents in his possession. And we saw it the other way around with Trump. And so even if there is actual legal justification for doing what they're doing, putting the brakes on or putting the gas on is all dependent on who's in office, which means the United States really has in many respects become a banana republic. And some people in Canada want to join the U.S. as the 51st state. Why? To be part of that? It's a legal circus down there, a political clown show. That's kind of what's going on. It's all performative. It's all theater. We're seeing it over and over again. It's on full display in Washington, D.C., on the streets with the National Guard. How real is it? I think it's pretty darn real. It makes me really, I worry, man. And I think back to the Freedom Convoy, right? The Freedom Convoy. And what happened at the end? People got beaten by police. Oh, so many people enraged by that. I was too. But a lot of those same people who are enraged about that are cheering because the National Guard is on the streets of Washington, D.C. And I hear some of those same streamers, the Canadian side, calling for the military to be used on the streets of Canada in cities where they say crime is out of control. We need the military to come in. Give your head a shake. Do you hear what you're asking for? You're asking for the military to become the police. That is martial law. When you start bringing in the military, people's rights start going right out the window. I strongly disagree. The last thing I want is the military tanks rolling down my street to keep the peace. What I want is effective policing, effective community policing, effective interventions, better programs, stronger laws, less liberalized drug policies. As far as I'm concerned, you can trace a lot of these problems right back to Justin Trudeau and the legalization of weed. And I saw even then a pivot at the time in the narrative coming out of the state broadcaster CBC, where they became very, very much more progressive in their drug talk, especially on CBC radio, where they started to advocate for a lot of different kinds of, I don't know, more lenient drug laws, drug policies, talking about LSD like it's a good thing. I strongly disagree, man. And I don't really, I'm also strongly against the use of LSD to treat psychological disorders related to things like post-traumatic stress disorder. If you're screwed up in the head, the last thing you need to do is pump yourself full of drugs so that you're hallucinating and not seeing things clearly, or in terms of in real terms. I think a little stress relief, fine, but we need to get people grounded again, get people centered, get people back in touch with reality, and get people to a state where they are capable to function, become productive members of society, and deal with their problems head on, not hide from them or mask over them in a drugged out stupor. Drugged up, dumbed down, checked out. Tent City, a few blocks from here. It took a year and a half, maybe 2 years, for my municipality to go in and finally deal effectively with this Fun Guys magic mushroom shop that had been operating illegally in my town. And finally, it got shut down. Thank God for that. Adios, good riddance. Don't need it. Certainly don't need the kids from the high school going in there anymore. Thank you. Unregulated, unlicensed, unsupervised. Not good for people. Not good for our community. Tent City. And I'm telling you, a lot of those people over at Tent City were regulars over there. And there wasn't a tent anywhere in town ever in this community until Trudeau got into power. And his progressive liberalized drug laws took root, and here we are. You can disagree. The numbers don't lie. And neither do the actions. Because as we get those actions, we get reactions. As we get those policies, we get these effects. We get unintended consequences, unexpected consequences, social problems. And we get enforcement actions. I have people in my community who just want the tent city swept away. Yeah, they'd love to see the military come in here and just sweep away all those people, or have the cops go in, bust some heads, throw them all in jail, and forget about them. But they're human beings, and you're not fixing the problem. You're just masking over it. You're just putting it away over there. But what of those people? Is that the humane thing to do? And the same thing with immigration. The people are here. And because they have been, certainly on the US side, violating a lot of people's rights in the process of cracking down on crime, whatever that means exactly, I'm not exactly sure. 800 arrests? Arrests for what? But as they are going through the arrests of those people, are their rights being respected? I doubt it, because we've already seen some actual US citizens swept up in these raids, their rights violated. And if they can do it to them, they can do it to you if you live in the States. And that's why a lot of Canadians are not going down there. That's why tourism is down so much. I know that politicians, and I think it's Vermont, are reaching out, trying to heal the wounds inflicted because of these immigration policies, because of the 51st state rhetoric, the friction between our two countries, the trade war, all of that stuff. And in the States itself, this is creating huge divisions politically within the country. Now, again, back to Rick Wilson and his video that he posted. Let me bring it up here. Okay, here it is here. And it starts off with this very public arrest by ICE. And this man is screaming that he's not a criminal and he's just there to work. I'm not saying that the immigration thing is not an issue. I'm saying that it's how you deal with it that is important. And what I'm seeing here, very concerning.
Yo no tengo nada, señor. Señor, señor, por favor. Yo no debo nada, papi. Yo no debo nada. 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 Yo estoy trabajando. Yo no debo nada. 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 Yo trabajo. Yo quiero estar con mi familia. Yo quiero estar con mi familia. Yo vengo de trabajar. Por favor. Yo vengo de trabajar. Yo quiero estar con mi familia. Yo no soy criminal. Yo no soy criminal. Yo no soy criminal. Yo no soy criminal. Yo no soy criminal.
I'm not a criminal. I'm not a criminal. I'm here to work. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. Those motherfuckers do not have a warrant. They do not present badges. They are masked men. And I know that they don't believe this, but the Constitution specifically and explicitly, and listen, for all you Federalist Society goons who are still out there, for all you Republican rule of law types who supposedly believe the Constitution is a sacred document, it says that all persons, not citizens, all persons in the United States are entitled to due process of law. This is not due process of law. This is authoritarian cosplay bullshit. I'm going to tell you something. Every one of these motherfuckers who is doing this, behind abusing the power of the badge, behind a mask, no name tags, no warrants, no body cams, no identification, no paper trail, and they disappear, these people. I have a message for you folks. You are going to be fucked. You are going to jail. This will end someday. You will be bankrupted. by the people that you have abused, because you will find that the idea that you thought that Trump would pardon you and you had sovereign immunity will be mistaken. These people doing this in our streets right now, they have formed essentially a secret police force on Trump's behalf. If this country does not understand what is happening at this point, you need to wake the fuck up. If you do not understand that if they can turn this police force against those people, they will turn it against you. They will turn it against American citizens, and they have. There are multiple cases now of American citizens being detained without access to an attorney, without a phone call, without a warrant, without probable cause, and at the hands of violent men who are unaccountable to the law. This will end someday. And people like Tom Homan and Stephen Miller, who are at the top of the food chain of this authoritarian unit, you can think you're going to ride around for the rest of eternity in your black and gold brand new cars with their President Trump ice wrap on them. This will end. The law will survive, and you will pay a price. This country was always the propositional nation. We had a president this week who attacked the Smithsonian Institution because he didn't like the truth being told about slavery. And folks, I don't know if you've seen it, but I had a Enemies List podcast this week where I went, if you thought that thing I just did a minute ago was rip shit, I went hard because they are trying to recast what America is and means. They are trying to say that America is a blood and soil nationalist country. They're trying to say that you have to be white, you have to be Christian to be a citizen. That if you came here from somewhere else, followed the rules, became a natural citizen, it doesn't really count. Because they do not distinguish right now between illegal, naturalized, people who are here legally and in process of becoming citizens or working. They don't care about any of it. Any of it. And at some point, again, there will be a reckoning for this. Yeah. They may not come tomorrow, but there will be a reckoning for this. And a president who will deploy troops to the streets of this country has opened a terrible door. He's opened a terrible, terrible door. This is not going to end the way Trump thinks it's going to end, because he believes he'll be remembered forever as a glorious leader. He will not. There will be people who, when this is over, are like those German soldiers after Nuremberg, who were like, what are you talking about? I didn't run the concentration camp. I was just there. I worked there. That was my job, man. What was I going to do? Say no? Yes. The answer is you fucking say no. And for these military members that have been dragooned into this by either the Southern governors who are sending their troops to D.C. or the D.C. Guard, once again, the Uniform Code of Military Justice not only requires that you disobey an illegal order, but it makes it illegal to obey an illegal order.
Lincoln Project. Trump doesn't like them much. He has a point.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I haven't looked in the chat, don't care to at the moment. I would imagine there are some people out there also thinking that bringing the National Guard into DC has worked. And Trump has pointed out that people are going out to restaurants again. And they've cited stats from the past week saying that crime is down 35, 40%, whatever. I keep hearing different numbers, which is not surprising. And this is why also I don't believe much of anything that comes out of the Trump administration when they're talking about stats or what they say are facts asserting anything, because they just make stuff up. Worse than that, if they have government officials who release reports with statistics that they don't like, they get fired. Pete Hegseth apparently just dismissed a general, I think today, a general who came out with a report after the bombing raid on Iran, stating that there hadn't been as much damage to the nuclear program as Trump had said there was. So the report from the general initially contradicted what Trump was saying. And so now, without any reason actually being given, Hegseth has fired this general today. And then we saw the person responsible just about a week ago for releasing the jobs statistics. Trump didn't like them, so he just fired the person. And I don't know how much weight statistics released over a 1 week period anyway actually hold. But even so, whatever they're releasing, I take it all with a grain of salt because of things just like that. They're making up their own reality. The streets of DC may very well be safer. They might not be safer. They might be more dangerous. Certainly, people's rights are in jeopardy, I would say, at this point, if not already violated, because of the presence of National Guard troops there. And maybe some people feel safer than other people. Maybe certain groups of people are safer and other groups of people are not safe at all. Anyway, slice it. It's a dark time. And I'm not buying into it, because the numbers that they throw out there just are made up, and they're making up, as I say, their own reality. You may recall when I was very concerned about the change of name from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. It all goes back to that. It's about what people choose to believe, largely. That belief becomes reality, but sometimes in a society, things that you believe to be true simply aren't true. It's just that things are hidden from you, or your perspective is skewed because you're only being given certain information, or maybe even false information. I think maybe that's the case. Is it the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico? I say it's the Gulf of Mexico, because I don't think Trump has the right to just arbitrarily change the name of something that isn't really his to change the name of, unless he's prepared to use his military to enforce it, or maybe the media, like, say, Associated Press. You know, when I was in journalism school, one of the first things we were exposed to is the AP Style Guide, the Associated Press Style Guide, which has, it's just jam-packed full of phrases and words and sayings, words and phrases that you're supposed to avoid, what certain things mean, preferred ways to refer to things like, say, immigrants or gay people, what words are acceptable, what words are not, basically what's politically correct and what isn't. And when I say politically correct, I mean that is supercharged today, because AP just recently agreed to change the way that it reports on the Gulf so that now they use the Gulf of America in their reporting. And that's right in their AP style guide for all journalists that contribute to Associated Press stories. It's important because once it's in there, that gets into the information stream everywhere and into your mind, and it shapes the way you perceive the world. So you see, Trump understands this. The people around him understand this. The people around him maybe understand it even better than he does. They know that they can just make things so simply by saying so. And that means controlling the information flow. That means making up numbers. Like, yeah, Canada has a $30 billion subsidy from the United States every year. Not so, not true at all. He made that up. The United States, under Trump and all of his tariffs, has already attracted over $17 trillion in investment. He said that just 3 days ago. Not true. No way it's true. Can't be true. That's half of the whole GDP for the U.S. economy. Highly questionable. I would say just straight up false. But people believe it. So in the minds of people, it's true. And if he says crime is down in D.C., then it's down. And if he says that the National Guard is on the streets for your safety, and it is safer now, see, it's all worth it. Is it? Well, yeah, it's so worth it that now he wants to put National Guard troops or the military possibly into other cities across the United States. But don't worry, it's all for your safety. And why should I worry when I hear other streamers out there saying, yeah, we need the military on the streets of Canada too. That's what we should do. That'll take care of the crime. That'll take care of those tent cities. Just get rid of those people. You know what? The people who called to say that this isn't the Canada that I grew up in, this isn't the Canada that we had, you're right. Something is not right in the heads of some people these days. This is not the same Canada. Certainly things have changed. Not only have our governments become more authoritarian, strangely, the people who were most opposed to it are now most in favor of it. Maybe it's because they're the weak-minded, maybe the most impressionable, or maybe the most corrupt. I don't know. All I know is something's not right out there. You're seeing it in the politics, and a lot of it is opportunistic because as politicians see this shift, some of them are trying to exploit it, capitalize on it. And in this by-election out in Alberta, Battle River Crowfoot, where Pierre Poilievre, conservative leader, became, well, never really wasn't the leader, but he has a seat in Parliament now because he did win the election this past week. With 80.4% of the vote, the electorate in that riding voting for him, it was a safe conservative riding, so not that unexpected, even though there were over 200 candidates on the ballot. But the interesting thing about this today is that there are streamers out there saying that Pierre Poilievre crushed the right because he won, and the candidates who represented the political right, specifically in that riding, Grant Abraham from the United Party of Canada, and there was a candidate out there who ran also locally for the People's Party of Canada. Those two candidates only, they took in less than, I think it's less than 2% of the vote overall. So I think Grant Abraham might be close to 2. Grant Abraham got just over 1%, 1.4, 1.8, something like that. I think it was only just over 1%. Anyway, it was in that zone. And the PPC candidate came away, I think, with 0.8%, less than 1%. So it was about 2% total between the two of them. So some analysts, some pundits out there saying, see, Pierre crushed the right. He neutralized it, ice skated to victory with 80.4% of the vote. But some people are saying that maybe he didn't crush the right, that the right maybe was just there to unite and propel him to that victory. And I sort of agree, but there's a caveat. Here's Grant Abraham on his X account. Grant's been on the program. And he says here, Pierre hasn't crushed the right flank. They voted for him at Sean Speer. Sean Speer is one of those influencers. He's at The Hub. I do watch Sean Speer from time to time, and David Frum and some of the others over there. Pretty smart group. I'd say that analysis, though, saying that they crushed the right, probably not accurate. In a way, Grant Abraham is right to a degree. He says there is a difference, Cowboy. They voted to give him a bit more runway as one final Hail Mary so they don't have to gaze upon their own false hope or their gnawing fears that the system is past broken or that he is a puppet to the globalists. The CPC has left conservatism. What do they conserve? And he says here, this is Sean Speer's post right here. He says, Poilievre has crushed his right flank. That's quite the commendable feat. Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre has pulled off something that deserves far more recognition. Can you still see that whole post? Yes, you can. Okay. I'll read it here. Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre has pulled off something that deserves far more recognition than it gets at a time when right-wing populism has fractured conservative parties across the Western world. He has consolidated the Canadian right into a single mainstream political vehicle. His success in effectively decimating Maxime Bernier's People's Party, undermining talk of Alberta separatism, and holding together a broad national coalition is a major accomplishment for the Conservative Party and Canadian democracy itself. As party leader, Poilievre has stitched together a coalition that stretches from former People's Party supporters to the median Canadian voter. The result was 42% of the popular vote in April's election, including gains across most regions of the country. No, they lost the election. They had a huge lead and they blew it. This is no small feat, he goes on to say here, especially since in virtually every other advanced democracy, center-right parties are ceding space to populist rivals who are hostile to open markets, free trade, and even liberalism itself. Yeah, because there is a war on liberalism. Actually, that's the focus of the whole thing, which he still hasn't clued in on. Canada could easily have gone down the same road. Justin Trudeau's wedge politics on immigration, class warfare, and pandemic restrictions created fertile conditions for the rise of our own version of right-wing populism. Yet the opposite has happened. Under Poilievre's leadership, Maxime Bernier's People's Party has gone from nearly 5% of the popular vote in 2021 to less than 1% in this year's general election, and not much more in this week's Alberta election. A big part of this story has been Poilievre's careful responsiveness to his right flank. Time and again, he's hit issues and messages that appeal to these disaffected voters that's kept him in the Conservative tent or brought them back after their previous populist defection. Poilievre's sharpness, by the way, shouldn't be underestimated as part of his overall resonance. Of course, there are trade-offs in this strategy. One can fairly argue that Poilievre has sometimes gone further than necessary to appeal to these voters, but those who say he should ignore them altogether miss the point. If he repositioned himself as a centrist tomorrow, the immediate effect would ostensibly be to push them away to a political alternative that would almost certainly be more radical and less responsible. By keeping them inside the Conservative tent, there's a case that Poilievre isn't just serving his party's interests, but the country's broader political stability. The counterfactuals are worth considering. Imagine a Conservative leader who ignored his or her right-wing flank and allowed Bernier to grow in unpredictable ways. or one who leaned too far into the populist sentiment and risked remaking the Conservative Party into something unrecognizable. Both paths would weaken Canadian conservatism and destabilize Canadian politics. Instead, Poilievre has managed to both shore up the party's base and expand its broader reach. He crushed a populist rival while keeping the Conservative Party firmly in the political mainstream. That's an outcome that virtually no other Conservative leader in the Western world has achieved in recent years. His critics won't give him credit. It's far easier to focus on his edginess or to assert that he is polarizing. But if one's prepared to be dispassionate about it, Poilievre has strengthened the Conservative Party, tempered the forces of right-wing populism, and built a coalition that is as broad as any in the party's modern history. Yes and no. I think he's got valid points, but I think he's just a little bit off the mark. In that riding, Poilievre was able to ice skate to victory, even though they had 200 candidates on the ballot to try to disrupt things. It was a safe Conservative riding, so they were going to vote for him anyway. I think it was a reflection of the current political reality or the current temperature politically in the country in that regard, or maybe a current good reading on the temperature of conservatism within Canada. And that in itself does show that there still isn't as large an appetite for alternatives like the United Party of Canada or the PPC at this point, as some people involved in those parties and that end of the political spectrum might believe themselves, because I think a lot of people at that far end are in something of an echo chamber, and they listen to themselves and they think that they are more powerful than they probably are. Because it's Canada, it's not the United States, certainly is not Europe. But Poilievre, I think, is being led right now by maybe different people even within the party. I'm not sure, but I get the sense that there has been a shift in strategy already. Not so much focus. There was a shift in strategy, certainly, going into Alberta to run in that riding, where his rhetoric did shift more to the right. And you're going to see an even sharper shift or pivot to the right heading into the next federal election, I believe. And we've seen it already, I would say, with Poilievre, because of what I'm seeing come through in my email from the Conservative Party of Canada when they're looking for money, and also what I'm seeing online. So, case in point, let me show you what the Conservative Party is sending out in their email blasts. Is it here? Yes, here it is, I believe. Yep, right here. They are beginning to focus more on some of these very emotional or emotion-driven issues, ones that really hit the hot button for conservatives, and in particular, I would say the Christian conservatives. And so here today, receiving this from the party saying, "Hey, Richard, this will leave your blood boiling." Of course, appealing to me on an emotional level. A Canadian nurse got fined and suspended for pointing out that there are two genders. She was brave and spoke her truth. What did she get? Fined $93,000. This is blatant authoritarian censorship. Defend your rights and stand up for free speech. Sign your name here in the next 15 minutes and join thousands of Canadian patriots. Interesting choice of words. Patriots. This bizarre censorship is getting out of hand. What happened to free speech? Canada should be a free country. The woke machine clearly disagrees. We must restore free speech and free thinking in Canada. And anyway, the point is that they are focusing on an issue there that I think, like, Poilievre has commented on this before many times, even when he was just, a before he was even leader of the party. But it's the gender issue. That's more in the PPC domain. But they've been claiming more and more of that PPC territory on issues, immigration, LGBTQ, compelled speech, those issues. Very much hot button issues that really resonate with people on an emotional level. Very, very inflammatory, divisive stuff. Religion, sex, not just the politics. Politicized religion, like what's more inflammatory than that? But yeah, the gender issue. So that's one example. So you have that. And then I'm also seeing that he suddenly, during the election, the by-election, not during the general election, but during the by-election, he did appear on some podcasts with conservative streamers who I'm quite certain are being funded by conservative backers who are out there doing a job for the Conservative Party, but have been saying things that have been so far to the right that the Conservative Party itself, even though I think they've been supporting these guys, they didn't really want to put him on those programs for fear of alienating any part of the progressive wing of the Conservative Party itself. So they've been trying to play this balancing act for a long time. But because they lost that federal election in such grand style, I mean, it was an epic fail. It was theirs to lose, and they lost it because they were so far out in front. And then the whole lead got blown because of the 51st state stuff and this rise in patriotism, Canadian patriotism, where suddenly Canadians are like, yeah, we don't want to lose the country. Who are we going to trust with this? Carney, not Poilievre. When the chips were down and Canadians as a whole had to go to the polls and decide who they thought it was that would save the country, who would actually save Canada in the end, they turned to the Liberals and Mark Carney. Isn't that strange? And so what is going to be the result of that? Well, it's what we're seeing already. We're seeing Poilievre shift even further to the right in Canada. Like so many other politicians in Europe or even around the world, even in Poland, we just saw a new president elected, far right, or far right as they describe him, opposed to Donald Tusk. So anyway, yeah, Poilievre shifting to the right, the party shifting to the right. You're going to see a stronger shift because they lost the federal election. So the strategy then that I think you're going to see unfold more and more over the next year or so, you're going to see the whole party shift more to the right. You're going to see more emails like that coming through. You're going to see these issues that have been really the domain largely of the PPC. They're going to grab a hold of those things more, and you're going to see increasingly harsh rhetoric, I think, even coming from Poilievre, because they're looking for a path to victory, and because trying to sort of play to the right, but not really fully embrace it and push it away at times. Their strategists who were advocating for a more moderate, middle of the road approach, they're going to be pushed aside. I think they already have been, and you're going to see the party, the CPC, push further to the right. You saw it during the Freedom Convoy. It even started there. And it's coming from Alberta, the Conservatives out in Alberta, where you basically saw a coup of the Conservative Party as a result of what happened during the Freedom Convoy. And this is just a further evolution of all of that because O'Toole stepped down as leader. of the Conservative Party because of what was going on with the Freedom Convoy. So it wasn't necessarily a coup of the federal government, but it was disruptive. It did displace, they did take out O'Toole, leader of the Conservative Party, and that led to a pathway for Poilievre to become the leader. And now a further shift and a further shift and a further shift to the right. Maxime Bernier responding in kind in the PPC already, because he's also, let me see if I can find what he mailed out, is he's looking for cash too. They're all looking for help. Everybody needs help. I understand. Let me just call this up and I'll show you what he's tweeting about. Yes, he's going on about the homeowner in Lindsay who has had his home broken into, defended his family, and wound up in jail as a result. So Maxime Bernier latching onto that issue. A Canadian defended his home, and the state treats him like the criminal. This is the type of country our corrupt political class created. Criminals are coddled. Law-abiding citizens are punished. Police follow orders from politicians who fear criminals more than they respect your rights. No Canadian should ever be criminalized for defending their home, period. And he calls for the enshrinement of a real castle doctrine in Canadian law, giving Canadians the legal right to defend their homes against an invader. And that certainly is an issue that is going to resonate, especially with conservatives. And I think, and you've already seen Doug Ford even come out and talk about that issue. But Bernier, he's looking for that political ground as well. He's looking to, I think, shore up his support on that end of things, as it's eroded by what Poilievre has been doing. And the choice of words also interesting, important, but not necessarily to be taken literal when it comes to naming policies or platforms, where Poilievre is promising to bring in what he's calling the Canadian Sovereignty Act. Have you looked at what that really means? I'm not so sure that it really means more sovereignty. He's calling it that to address the whole issue of separatism, and I think effectively so. And in the course of enacting this proposed legislation, if elected, and he is able to do that, I think he might actually give the West what they really want, which is more pipelines and a slightly different deal when it comes to things like equalization payments. But it isn't actual sovereignty, because it's not a change in the Constitution. It's just changes in policies and some laws that would make it easier to build pipelines between provinces. But that in itself is not a change in the Constitution to give the province more sovereignty. In fact, I would say it's kind of the opposite. It gives the federal government more power to kind of jam things through. And so while Alberta will get more of maybe what it wants, other provinces like BC and maybe Quebec might have to just suck it up and take what the federal government delivers to them through the Sovereignty Act. Yeah, sovereignty of Canada as a nation, not more sovereignty for provinces. Actually, as I've said myself, the real solution to these problems is the opposite of what the separatists are trying to sell people out in Alberta and in Quebec, in particular in Alberta. The solution to Alberta's problems is not more sovereignty for Alberta. It's more sovereignty for the federal government, so that the federal government has the sovereignty, the power to make a decision on behalf of the whole country, not just Alberta, but the whole country, and say we're building a pipeline through Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, through the Maritimes, right out to Tidewater. We're doing it because Alberta needs it and it's good for the whole country. And we as a nation collectively will all benefit from it. And so we as a Canadian federal government say that this is what must be so. So we're going to expropriate this land and we're going to push this thing through here. And we're going to buy up this property and compensate you, and we're ramming it through there. And your provincial sovereignty has to take a back seat to the national interest. And in this case, the national interest is the Alberta interest. See? That's how it needs to work. Poilievre's got the right idea. Will his Sovereignty Act actually bring that to bear? I don't know. Because it's not actually a change to the Constitution. It's just changes in legislation. It may work. It's complicated. Point is, they're playing with words to play to a political base, to appease the separatists by using a word like sovereignty in the same way that Danielle Smith did to get elected provincially. But she plays with words too. What is it? The Alberta, a sovereign Alberta within a sovereign Canada. I can't remember that off the top of my head, the exact wording. But it's just a word salad. But it does pave the way to possible separation. I don't think that's healthy. And I'm worried about the fate of the country when I see leaders like Bernier saying that he would support Quebec separation. He does support it. He says vote for it. And he's also saying vote for separation, the separation of Alberta. And even Grant Abraham is clearly in favor of a separatist vote, or to vote on separatism, and supports the separatists. And then the thing that really makes me wonder about Grant, and maybe we'll have him back on the program to discuss it, but he says conservatives aren't conservatives anymore because what are they conserving? But when I see a political leader also saying that he's a conservative but is in favor of separation, I have to wonder, what the heck are you conserving if what you're really doing is trying to destroy what we have?
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, so I've actually said I like Grant Abraham. I always liked Maxime Bernier. I'm concerned about, and me editorializing, but I have concerns about some of these things they say about separation, breaking up the country. And in the case of Maxime, when he talks about Alberta, on the one hand, he says, you vote for separation, but nothing will happen. Quebec voted for it, but nothing happened. If you're sitting there saying, as I've heard other politicians say as well, that you can vote for separation just to use it as a bargaining chip or a way to leverage against the federal government to get more of what you want without actually breaking up the country, I think you're playing with fire. And I don't think it's healthy for the country to be doing that. I strongly disagree with the approach. And when people are saying that, I have to wonder if they're really being genuine about it. It seems like maybe they're just playing games. Politicians, I don't know. It's very concerning. And look at the state that the country is in. Look what happened on our program just a couple of nights ago. Everything blew up because we had a disagreement between a few people over separation and Alberta sovereignty and la, because it's a hot button issue. Right now, there isn't much that divides people more, but I don't think you have the numbers yet to do it. So, as you know, I love my country, and I believe that we have a right to self-determination. I think it's worth saving. Pierre Poilievre saying exactly the same thing as what I've said, while at the same time kind of playing to the separatists, but with his language and trying to address their concerns, but not endorsing separation, quite the opposite. Clearly, as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, very much, he seems to be very much in favor of keeping the country together. But the party itself, I don't know anymore. What I see going on over there, I think there's almost something wrong within the Conservative Party itself. But I think it's like there's, like within every party, you get infiltrators from the other parties, you get a mix of opinions. It isn't just black and white. You don't just get straight up conservatives in the Conservative Party. You have progressives. You have the progressive wing. You have the conservative wing. You have other flavors in there as well. And some of them are there simply to be disruptive, frankly. They're plants. Certainly, we saw that even within the Liberal Party itself when you saw candidates like, who was it, Ruby Dalla, who did all of the policies very clearly conservative in orientation, and then they disqualified her because they knew that she's not really a liberal. So you can't run. You're out of here. They found a technicality to disqualify Ruby Dalla, who should really be over with the conservatives anyway, but in with the party because she was just there to disrupt everything. You can pretend otherwise, but it's just not so. It's just so blatantly obvious. That was, I think, the most blatant display of party infiltration I've seen anywhere. And interestingly, Grant Abraham also turfed from the leadership race when he tried to become the leader of the Conservative Party, along with Joseph Bourgault, the two of them. We had them both on the program as a result of being purged from the leadership race at that time. Poilievre, of course, became the leader. And maybe that's why, because we're hearing separatist sentiments coming from those folks. Sovereignty, very much the issue in Ukraine, where Donald Trump posting weird stuff in the last couple of days. I pointed out last night that he had posted on Truth Social about Biden didn't let Ukraine strike inside Russia. And how are you supposed to win a war if you're not allowed to fight back against your enemy, but only defend? Trump himself has taken that position and has said that Ukraine, just a couple of weeks ago, he said, he was asked point blank by a reporter, should Ukraine be allowed to strike inside Russia? Should they strike Moscow? And he said, no, they shouldn't. And yet, 2 nights ago now, he posts quite the opposite. And some people took that as a green light for Ukraine to go ahead and become more aggressive and go on the offensive and actually strike inside Russia. I don't know if that's really what it meant. By the time we turned around 24 hours later, Trump was saying in the Oval Office, again, sort of the opposite, that it takes two to tango. It takes two, he says, it takes two. No, actually, as I sit and think about it, when it comes to like an all-out war, it really only takes one. It takes one. It doesn't necessarily need two. It takes one. One country to invade another. One dictator to get hungry and greedy and decide that they want more land, more resources, more money, more power, and they invade another country. It only takes one. And if somebody invades you and you defend yourself, and then the person invading you makes up some manufactured excuse as Noam Chomsky would say, manufacturing consent for an aggressive move. And then you blame it on your victim. He made me do it. You can assess these things any way you want. I'm just saying that it does not take two. It takes one. It could be two, but it only takes one. And so you need to keep that in mind as you assess these things. And Donald Trump, I don't think accurately assessing the situation in Ukraine, because he keeps saying it takes takes two. Maybe that's the problem. Or maybe it's just the profit motive. Now they're selling weapons to the EU rather than donating anything, and they're going to sell the weapons to the EU so that they can then donate them or give them to Ukraine, and Ukraine can buy weapons directly with a 10% markup, by the way. So that'll be good for the U.S. economy, and I don't know how the MAGA base feels about that, but that's been the basis for the objections against the war in Ukraine, right? Can't afford it. Not spending any more money on that war. We're not donating anything to that. It's not our war. Well, now you're going to rake in the dough. And Donald Trump is A-okay with that. Well, we'll see how that goes. I'm not judging necessarily any of that at this point. We'll just have to see how it unfolds and whether there's actual justice or freedom built into that in any manner. I do know this, that all the pro-Russian pundits all the way along have been wrong, and then they were wrong again, and they continue to be wrong, and they're still wrong, and they've been wrong all the way around 360 degrees on this whole war, because the biggest names, the biggest experts kept saying this is going to be over in a matter of days, then weeks, months, years have dragged on. They've been wrong at every turn. And they keep saying, Ukraine doesn't stand a chance. And it is very clear right now that Ukraine is being ground down. They definitely have issues with manpower on the front lines. I don't think there's any question about that. But so too does Russia have some issues. Recruiting. They have a lot of people trying to dodge orders to go to the front line. A lot of people don't want to fight, obviously. Very dangerous up there. Well over 1 million people, 1 million casualties now. Just horrific, tragic. And I do wish the whole thing would come to an end. But Russia, not as resilient, not as strong as some people would have you believe. New reports coming out that Russia is in economic crisis. Their central bank interest rates are now over 18%. And they hit a high of 21% just recently. In the US right now and in Canada, they're right around 4.5%. Inflation in Russia is about 10%. And some experts say the real rate, no doubt, is maybe 20, maybe even 25%. So that's like the kind of inflation we were experiencing here in Canada and in the US during the pandemic. And that's still filtering through, still an issue for us, inflation, rising prices. But in Russia, it's a very serious issue. It's putting their economy on the back foot. Unemployment is also on the rise over there. Their GDP growth has gone to 0%. And that is not a good sign, especially for an economy that is a war economy, because if you're producing more and more weapons for a war, your debt should be increasing and your gross domestic product should be increasing. So if they have GDP growth of 0%, that means their economy is not growing at all, even though they're trying to produce more weapons. That means that economic output in other areas has been reduced substantially, possibly because their oil industry now is being affected so much by all these drone strikes against the oil refineries there. And so the economic sanctions put in place by the Biden administration, there, I think, has been a degree of latency that was built into that. And I think some of that is beginning to have reverberating effects now through the Russian economy. And as we're receiving these reports this week now of a weakening Russian economy, we can see that things have not been this serious on the economic front in Russia since the collapse of the USSR back in the 1980s. Now, that's not to say they're at that point yet, because there are economic indicators that say that Russia's economy is still resilient enough, they can continue to go forward. But this is not just a war of attrition on the front lines, this is also a race against time, because it's really an issue for Russia of whether they can continue to keep their economy afloat long enough to achieve victory within Ukraine. And for Ukraine, it's an issue of whether they can continue to keep the support coming in militarily and economically to keep their government together, keep their society together, and keep the weapons flowing, and whether they can continue to put enough boots on the ground on the front lines in order to protect what territory they have remaining, which is still about 80% of their land. And I don't think this is going to end. I think a lot of what we saw in Alaska and in Washington with Zelensky and the European leaders coming to visit, largely performative. I think it had something to do with Trump wanting to, I don't know, look like he was doing something, maybe trying to kickstart something, put pressure on Russia in some way through these meetings to push for a peace accord of some kind. But Russia coming back just in the last couple of days saying they're not really interested in meeting with Zelensky. And that's no big surprise. Shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. They think they have the upper hand. They're on the front foot. But there's some sort of a shift that has happened. We can see that very clearly within the Trump administration with regard to Ukraine. So all I can say is keep your eyes on it. Excuse me. There's going to be something major developed there, I'm pretty sure. Also, just back to the whole shift to the right, I kind of almost forgot about this, but this is an interesting story here, just illustrating the fact that, yeah, we are seeing some sort of a strange, I would say unhealthy shift to the right, in my opinion. And I don't even like using these left-right political descriptions because I just don't really subscribe to it. I think fascism and communism are more over to the one side together. But here's a story about the video game platform online Roblox, one of the world's most popular gaming platforms, bans hate speech. Users have found a way to spread it anyway, it says. And what's really going on over here, and I went and I checked it out myself. I'm not going to show you because I don't want to cause any problems on any of the social media platforms we're on tonight. But it says here, in Roblox, one of the world's largest online gaming platforms, users join to play, create, and be themselves in a virtual world. But some might be there for a more insidious purpose, to expose youth to hate speech. Gee, does any of that kind of stuff go on over here on our platform? Players of Spray Paint, a popular game on Roblox with over 1 billion visits, in which players skate and create graffiti art in a virtual skate park setting, can bypass moderation by spray painting hate messages across walls, ramps, and other virtual game settings. CBS conducted an investigation into this, and they documented dozens of swastikas and at least a dozen instances of hate speech targeting minority groups across spray paint servers which host multiplayer games. There are millions of games on Roblox where players can join servers to play with friends and strangers. So what's happening in spray paint is not uncommon, nor surprising. Roblox currently has at least 18 active lawsuits as a result of this, pending nationwide due to inappropriate content found on its games. So these kids are being exposed to things like swastikas. Some parents, I guess, probably getting upset and suing this video game platform company. CBS taking a look in there. And I'll tell you this, it actually doesn't surprise me, because you don't have to go very far to find the most extreme comments, and you can find them on X any night. Certainly on some other platforms as well, and Discord, find group discussions. There's some, stuff that I would say is pretty darn extreme these days. And I didn't have to go far. In fact, all I did was one search, and I found all kinds of swastikas within that game platform, just like that. So it's there. It's not just some overreaction by CBS. It's not an overreaction, I wouldn't say, by parents. It's a statement, and it's a true statement, and it is demonstrably true, because all you have to do is just go there and look, and it's just right in your face. Just do a Google search, Roblox swastikas. You'll see all kinds of images. I'm not going to bring them up on here, because you know what happens on places like YouTube, right? Because there is censorship. Now, we've interviewed people from across the political spectrum right here, because we do believe in free speech, real free speech. Real free speech. And we've had lengthy discussions with people who have a wide range of views, and I would say some actual fascists on the program, who claimed to not be fascists. And you know that we had one person on who has repurposed the swastika, saying it's not a swastika. And I think that's playing a game as well. That was a couple of years ago, and look where we're at now. So you think we don't have a problem? Maybe you do. Opinions vary. But as we've said on this program multiple times, as I've asserted, I think even Dragon was writing about it in his Substack the other day, right? Be careful not to stare into the abyss too long, or it will consume you. In other words, be very careful about how you respond to these problems in our society, lest you become the very thing that you have opposed. I think we're seeing that on the streets of Washington, California. We've seen it on the streets in Canada too. I'm seeing it everywhere. People who say they're all about freedom, but in the end, we keep making the mistakes. During the pandemic, some people wanted to throw people in camps if they didn't get the jabberoni. Camps. It was on the front page of the mainstream newspapers. I think it was the Toronto Star. Headline. They did a survey, a poll. A lot of people, majority, wanted to throw the unvaccinated in camps. I was appalled. Lockdowns, mandates, masking. Even now, still can't get jobs in some places unless you get the thing in the arm. I'm very much opposed to it. To all those policies. A lot of editorializing going on here tonight. But when I see people who complained about that, some of them, by the way, who got jabbed themselves, prominent people who claim to be fighting for freedom. And now a lot of those same people are the very people who are out there saying, yeah, we have too much crime in the streets. We should just bring the military in. These are the same people who are complaining about police being brought in to crack down on the protest in Ottawa. Same people who are like, they're bringing in UN troops. Same people who complained. And then Defense Minister Anita Anand was asked during the Public Order Emergency Commission in Canada about some comments about possibly even bringing in a tank for crowd control. And people are up in arms. Well, if you're up in arms about that, why are you now calling, for those of you who are, for the military to be brought in to police our streets in Canada? I don't think we're at that point. I sure as hell hope not. I pray we're not. I'll be back in a moment with a woman who decided to eat a Playboy magazine.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
I don't normally believe in coincidences or divine intervention, but a couple of things have happened that have been pretty weird to me in the last few days. Yesterday, I was thinking about Billy Joel's The Piano Man. Right? It came into my head. I was cutting the grass and I had ear protection on. I don't know why. I just started to hum the song. I don't normally even listen to Billy Joel. I hadn't heard it previously. It just came into my head. Now here's the weird thing. And there was a lyric in it that I couldn't quite remember what the words were. I kind of remembered, but it just wasn't quite getting them right. So anyway, finished doing all that. I had to go get a blood test, if you must know. So the vampire's there, just a routine thing. It's okay. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'm not going to die. Not right away. Anyway, the vampire's there, needed some blood. So I walked in and I'm standing there at the front desk and the radio is on. And it's Billy Joel's The Piano Man. I don't even listen to the radio. Like, I swear, I haven't heard that song in a long time. Certainly not that day, not recently at all. But there it was. And I'm listening, and there was the lyric, and then and then I could remember the lyric because I could hear it. And I thought, well, is that God? I don't know. Anyway, I survived the blood test. Everything's cool. Somebody up above was able to remind me of the lyric because they played the song for me. They must have God probably called the radio station and put in a request, and they said, Rick's going to be there probably in about 20 minutes. Could you queue up Billy Joel? So it all worked out great. Thank you, God. There was that. And then this is really weird because I woke up this morning and I was thinking about one of my art teachers when I was in high school. I can't remember her name for the life of me. She was only one of my teachers, not for a whole semester. Very nice lady. I don't know if this was appropriate or not, and I'm going to look this up here in real time with you. She brought out this magazine in class, right? It was Playboy. I'm like, do any of you have ever heard of Playboy magazine? I don't know. Today, if you brought that into a classroom, you might get fired. But hey, it was the 80s or whatever year it was. Maybe it was whatever. And I can't keep track of the decades. Let's see. I'll show you. It's hilarious. Here it is. Here it is here. Okay. Playboy. So she had this. She was laughing. She was showing it all to the class. Oops, no, not that. Oh, no, not that either. That was a Twitter scroll we were going to do. I don't think we're going to do that tonight because we've already gone past that story. But I have to go to Playboy. Okay, here we go. Here's just a Google search for Playboy magazine. Playboy. It's pigs. It's Playboy. See, get it? Anyway, I was just thinking about that day in class when the teacher brought out a Playboy magazine, and I don't know what year this is. There's a centerfold with the very best of Playboy special edition. Here we go here. Okay, let's go over here. I'll show you on this other tab. So you can see you can get the centerfold in all its glory. It was killer funny. Would this get you fired today? Probably. Everything gets you fired. Playboy, the very best of Playboy. So I woke up this morning thinking about this. Don't know why. I can't even remember the teacher's name. She was a pretty cool teacher, though. I liked her. I had a lot of really good teachers. I really did. I was so fortunate. Look at this. Taffy Lovely. It's the name of this Playboy's litter mate of the year. With, oh my God, Starboars. Swine rump. Misogynist of the year. Harvey Swinestein. The pig behind the man. Still means no. No means even amongst swine. What the bride books don't tell you about marriage. Diamonds are a sow's best friend. With a nose ring. Diamond nose ring. Fastest way to a sow's heart. Put a ring on it, and she's forever yours. Now, isn't that worthy of a paltry 3-month salary? The diamond engagement ring from DeBoer's. It's that other little box she's always wanted to have. Oh my God. Yeah, she probably got fired. That's probably why she wasn't my teacher very long. Humans are an acquired taste. Some pigs say they taste like chicken. Oh my God. Your knuckles, sir, well done, as you like them. Says here, practice safe sex. Don't piggyback without a condom. Oh, God. This is terrible. Viagra. Is it any wonder these pigs are laughing? It says here in this ad, life's hard enough without the humiliation and disheartening effects of erectile dysfunction. But things have changed. In fact, life is about to get a whole lot harder, making all you guys out there happier than a pig in, well, love, of course. At Geyser Pharmaceuticals, it was pharmaceuticals is spelled with an F, by the way, F-A-R-M, Pharmaceuticals. We believe we've discovered the fountain of youth. That's actually what they're doing out in the ostrich farm. They have pharmaceuticals out there too that they're developing with their antibodies. Sorry, I just couldn't resist. We think you'll agree. So whenever intimacy calls, remember that one Viagra delivers hours of backup relief in the bedroom, the living room, the kitchen, hell, even the gazebo. It's a surefire cure for the dreaded ED, and that's good news. Too bad. Party on. Viagra helps your mind back in the gutter. Let's get your mind back in the gutter where it belongs. Viagra, the guys from Geyser Pharmaceuticals. Andy Warhol, pork culture pop art icon. The weird, wild, wacky world of Andy Warhol. Estee Slaughter, to die for. Naturally, the world's best comes at a very high price. Estee Slaughter, Parfum pour les Sauces. Amazing ride, but it's a pig on gas. Hams across America. Pork you, sexual and social advice for practicing pigs. Pork you. Sexual and social advice for practicing pigs who don't know what they don't know. Feeling naughty? Learn where and when to draw the line. Naughty Dotty. Playboy lets you draw the line and connect the dots. Do it Hoggy style. Thomas Hagee has been featured on or in the following media. Oh, not just on CTV, The Globe and Mail, People, CNN, Vogue, and CBC, ABC, The Star, Entertainment Weekly, etc., blah, 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 but also in Playboy magazine itself. Isn't that interesting? Indeed. If not interesting, certainly entertaining, as I'm sure you will find this entertaining as well. As promised, a woman who apparently is a liberal, or so described in this social media post from Ollie London. It says a liberal woman with a nose ring films herself ripping up an old copy of Playboy magazine with a Donald Trump on the cover before eating it. Does this make sense? As much as anything else these days, I suppose. And I thought, what better way to kind of bring the show to a conclusion than to fulfill God's wish after having him implant memories of Playboy magazine in my mind this morning when I awoke. Strange. What a thing to be thinking of. First thing in the morning. Anyway, thought of that this morning. Then I stumbled upon this. So is this divine intervention? Perhaps. Perhaps not. But it's entertaining. She doesn't swallow. Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. As Walter Cronkite used to say, that may not be news, but that too is reality. I leave you tonight with a new song from Maverick and the News Brothers. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to say this to my wife. This is the title of the song. I am your hoochie coochie, free loving man. Want to dance? See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
Take my hand, girl, I know you can. I'm your hoochie coochie free love.
You shout my name, I'll never ever be the same. Yeah, I'm your hoochie coochie free loving man. Take my hand, girl, I know you can. I'm your hoochie coochie free loving man. Gonna love you all I can. Well, yeah. Girl, you drive me wild. Oh yeah. Like a crazy child. That's right. Never felt so free. You know. Come on, baby, come and dance with me. I'm your hoochie coochie free loving man. Take my hand, girl, I know you can. I'm your hoochie coochie free loving man. Gonna love you all I can, all I can, all I can.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.